Kevin and Brett, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about this thing ATI that you have going on.
You want to talk about it, Kevin?
Yes. Yeah, I'll speak about it real quick here and Brett can jump in. So ATI is Astral Travelers Institute, and it's a brainchild between Brett and myself trying to conduct and understand what astral travel is all about. Out of body, astral projection, soul journey. There's a lot of questions and just theories. And I like to use the word astral theories because there's nothing set in stone. So we
Right.
wanted to build an organization to bring people together to conduct experiments, to have expeditions, then put all this information into a report that we can share with the community. So with that being said, the first step to this is to get people out of body. And that's what we developed, Brett and myself. We developed a course, or more specifically, a system to get you out of body that we experimented for about 3.5, 4 months, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, what you can just get rid of, in items that you need to focus on to make it work. And that's what we just want to share through ATI, that the system can get you out of body tonight if you have that intention, that willingness, that desire. And once you are out of body, well, now we can move forward in this journey of astral projection and self-discovery and start to get answers to these questions that people ask all the time, but there's no solid answers. So that's what I have to say. Brett, if you want to add on to that, be my guest, my friend.
Just a small little thing, but like when we were working on the site, we mainly wanted something that removed some of the gatekeeping off of the subject, because unfortunately a lot of it, especially online, there's a lot that's kind of behind a bunch of woo, like behind a bunch of like spiritual practice. Like you have to, like you can't do it unless you have a vegan diet. You can't do it unless you like align, like you do energy work or chakra work or something like that. And really, like from our experience, that is not the case. Anybody can do this. I mean, everybody's kind of doing it every night. They're just not aware of it. And we can go into that later. But we're trying to, take away some of that fluff and make it a little bit easier for people to do, so that we develop this free course, because we really want everybody to try it, and be successful.
Amen.
Because it's life-changing, really.
Right. So, how did you guys actually get into astral travel?
You can go ahead, Kevin.
Well, something about the subject all throughout my life just resonated with me. It wasn't a specific time, a specific experience. Just throughout my life, especially in high school, learning about it, heard the vocabulary. And throughout my college years, I tried it on and off with various results. But the number one obstacle people face, including myself, is fear. So when I was practicing on and off throughout my college years and beyond my young adult years, I came pretty close, but I stopped, because once I started getting some results, it was scary. And I had those dry spells where I just didn't care about it. But over time, last year, 2023, I went on an ayahuasca experience, Rhythmia Life Advancement Center. If you ever heard about it, amazing organization. And something clicked where I had a burning desire to learn astral projection, not just do it once or spontaneous, but make it a core identity of who I am and consider myself a consistent astral projector. And, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And one thing led to another, which led me to find Brett, which led me to understand the system that we developed. And now here we are talking about it.
So was your introduction into astral projection by accident, or was it something that you learned and then got into?
You could say it was something I learned and got into. You
Okay.
know, intentions is everything. So
Right.
once you start having intentions on something, the universe is going to conspire with you to attract or show you your intentions. So when I started having these intentions about astral projecting, things just came to me: books,
Right.
people, insights,
Mhm.
experiences. And that's just me, my story.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, the reason that I ask was because I have a friend who was the one that actually introduced me to astral projection. But he said that he came to this by accident, and then he has a friend who actually explained to him what it was. Now, personally, I've never done astral projection, but I have experienced sleep paralysis,
Hmm.
and my experience with sleep paralysis was pretty scary. But prior to that, I already knew a little bit about sleep paralysis, and I actually did a research project for one of my classes
Oh,
about
nice.
sleep
Cool.
paralysis.
Oh, heck yeah.
So what I've learned about sleep paralysis kind of mimics astral projection. Now, sleep paralysis is more of an accidental thing, and it seems that astral projection is more something that you purposely, intentionally get into, right?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Go. Yeah. Go ahead, Brett.
well, sleep paralysis is something. It's a natural process that you do every night.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I can hear myself twice. Sorry. But
You're fine.
it's something that you do every night because your body is trying to keep yourself from moving around while you're dreaming, right? Because if you didn't have those motor functions turned off, you'd be flailing around when you were dreaming. So it's something that happens every night, whether you realize it or not. It's just
Hmm.
getting into that paralysis state. That's what the whole mind awake, body asleep state is that everyone's looking for when they try to go out of body. Now,
Hmm.
when you think about it, and this is why a lot of authors on the subject think that we do it every night, like we go out of body every night.
Right.
It's just that we don't realize it because we're skipping that whole, our awareness kind of goes offline, or we go into like an observer mode before we reach paralysis. So with our course, the free one, what it teaches you basically, and what it gives you the
Yeah.
tools for, is to interrupt that state, right? So later on in the sleep cycle, when you have longer REM states where your awareness is closer to the surface, we're trying to
Hmm.
interrupt those periods so that you wake up in sleep paralysis, and then
Yep.
you're able to experience that exit that you normally wouldn't, right? So you can experience
Mhm.
good leaving, like your focus, your consciousness going somewhere else.
Yep.
And it's wild. It's very strange. But you were almost there. It's like, I think we talked about it a little bit before.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. So, I mean, you might want to tell your listeners about that too, and then we can elaborate on that if you'd like.
Yeah, so, my experience was that it was once, I drifted off to sleep in my living room, and I don't remember what I was watching. I just remember I was watching TV and I drifted off to sleep. And then in the middle of the night, I feel my entire body be paralyzed.
Hmm.
And I saw a figure in the corner of my room, or I should say the living room, and then it carrying me away through the front door and off into the vast of space. And I did not have any control over myself. That's
Was
all
the
I
vast
remember.
sorry,
Well, sorry?
was the vast of space, did it have stars in it, or was it completely black?
It was just black.
Okay, that's the
Hmm.
void. It was the void.
The
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a concept called the void, and sometimes people, when they go out of body, will find themselves there, and it's like, I don't really know how to explain it, like a transitionary space, like in
yeah.
Yeah.
between
It's
spaces.
Yeah.
And some people like
yeah,
it because you can just like chill there, and you're kind of, you can be present and just because there's
Yeah.
nothing else, right? There's no other sensory input. So
right.
you can just kind of have some mental freedom in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. Your story, Eric, we
Yeah,
can say that you had an out of body experience. You were in paralysis, which was that mind awake, body asleep,
right.
which is another way to say an altered state of consciousness. That's the state of consciousness you need to be in to separate. And you had an entity, and we could talk more about what that entity could be. There's that term, guardian at the threshold, and what paralysis is, as in when you're in this state, you're halfway dreaming, but you're not, and you're halfway projecting, you're not, and this entity pulled you out of body and put
Yeah,
you into a dimension that is very common within projecting, which Brett just mentioned, which is that void. So, in a way, congratulations, Eric, to have this experience.
Yeah, well
And
done.
guess what, Eric? You can have that same experience and
mhm.
more anytime you want, because you can put yourself into that paralysis state on purpose.
Right. And,
When it comes, okay,
sorry.
sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just wanted to say really quick, when it comes to that
Yeah.
entity too, um, and this needs a bit more research. It could be that you were seeing something kind of like the Guardian of the Threshold, which
Uh
is
huh.
what we attribute to kind of like a, it's not so much an entity, but kind of like a watchdog that
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
tests you to see if you can stay calm enough, and clear of mind enough in order to proceed.
Yeah.
Usually those things, they look scary and they try to wake you up. It's a test. And they'll look
Yes.
different every single time for everybody. So it's not like a true entity. It's more like a program, like a mechanism.
Right.
Yes.
After that, though, but that entity taking you up, scooping you away, could be just a visual metaphor for something taking you and showing you some other place.
Hmm.
It
Yes.
could have been a real entity. It could have been what we call a thought form, which is just kind of like a, because outside of this, thought and emotion creates, right? There's the physics is out the window,
Mm-hmm.
and it could just
Right.
be a representation, like an imaginary thing that is scooping you up because you're expecting kind of like, okay, if something's going to pick me up and take me somewhere else, it's just a visual representation. It might not have been a real being at all. That's all I wanted
Yes.
to mention.
Right.
Yes.
It's hard to tell sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, because what we understand at ATI, the
Yeah.
mechanism of this entity, or whatever you want to call it, the guardian of the threshold, is it could be a manifestation of your current state of
Hmm.
consciousness. So if you're scared, worried, oh my goodness, what's happening to me? Well, that emotion is going to manifest itself into something. And because you're in a paralysis state, you'll be able to see it, hear it, sense it, whatever. And that's what we believe that the mechanism makes it work.
Right. And another thing that I want to ask is how closely does sleep paralysis and astral projection relate with near death experiences? Because it all seems pretty common with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Go
like
ahead, Bert.
when it comes to NDEs or near death experiences, it's basically the same thing.
Yes.
Your your physical vehicle, right? Like the meat adapter that is required to interface with this physical reality, right? Your body.
Right.
If it can't accept your consciousness at the current time, it is ejected
Mm-hmm.
until the body is able to take it back again. So when people get like mortally injured in that way or something happens,
Right.
there was another guy I was talking to on Discord a few years ago, and he learned to spontaneously project because he had a near death experience when he was a kid, and he was in the
Yeah.
hospital, and he got like ejected from his body, and he's like,
Yep.
okay, what's going on? There's myself laying on the like thing in the hospital. He was super sick, But he walked around the hospital and there was nobody around. It was like all empty. And he basically learned through that his consciousness is going out into somewhere else. And that was a near-death experience because his body couldn't take him at that time. And when his body was able to, he just got pulled right back in.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, basically. It's related.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to enhance what Bret just mentioned there, usually when you have an NDE, you actually get ejected into a dimension that we like to call real-time zone. But when you consciously separate, you get ejected into a dimension which we call the astral plane. So a lot of people will say, well, I had an astral projection experience, but everything looked kind of different. I couldn't see my friend, or I couldn't see my nightstand. Things didn't look one-to-one. Well, because you're not close to that physical realm, reality, physical.
Yeah.
But when you're in the near-death experience, you're more closer to that physical realm, which we used to label
real-time zone. Like you're in this physical dimension, basically, and like watching. There's some people that when they have a near-death experience are like that, like they can see themselves on the operating table, like it's actually happening, and they can see like what the doctors are doing. In that guy's case that I mentioned when he was a kid, it sounded like when it ejected him, he didn't go into he wasn't seeing the physical, he was near the physical, and like to him the hospital was empty, which in reality it wouldn't be, but he was looking. We can go. It's like it's a huge topic, right? Like you're in the physical, right? But the energy of the physical casts kind of a shadow outside of it into other energies, into other frequencies.
Yeah.
So when he was in this other frequency, it was still the hospital, but nobody was in it because it wasn't the physical. He was like in a shadow of it, not in a bad way. It's just kind of like the energy is radiating outward. The farther away you get from this physical reality, the more different it's going to look until it's completely something else.
Yeah.
It's like a radio tuning a station.
Exactly. Because when you're out of body, you're seeing that energetic representation of the physical world. And like Bret just mentioned, how we're like a radio, the frequency, we can vibrate higher or we can lower our vibration. Lower you are, more physical you become. So more you can be in that real-time zone. But if you raise your vibration, you go into the astral, and you can go beyond the astral into other planes of existence.
Right.
When it comes to the real-time zone, though, I don't think that you can go into it with an out-of-body experience, only an NDE. Because like if you tried to go into this physical now, current time and everything, your body is here. So it's just, it would just, basically, we're in it right now in our body. If you tried to do that out of body, it would just pull you right back to body really quickly. It would be hard to negate that pull, basically.
I see. Yeah. Because, from what I've come across, that people that have had NDEs, they're able to live full entire lives before they come back to their actual body. Sure. And it looks like time is detached from actual time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's dilated a lot. So we don't really know if it's like, we have no idea what the ratios are, right? Because like we were talking about with radio stations, right?
Yeah.
Right now we're turned into ERTH, Earth, FM, or whatever you want to call it. And as you turn the dial, your focus is moving to other frequencies, other stations.
Mm-hmm.
And this can extend out, who knows, infinitely? And who knows on each one of these slices or frequencies what the time dilation is going to be. I mean, me and Kevin we've been out, and I've been out, it felt like a couple days before, and then I came back, and like approximately 2.5 hours had gone by.
Yeah.
There's some people, I mean, I think maybe we read the same things before too, but on Reddit, I remember reading a really popular story about this guy that got knocked out, and he had like an entire life somewhere else, and like kids and stuff, and got married and everything. And
I've actually came across the same story. I don't remember where exactly, but I know it could probably be fake, but
Maybe it's a really
Yeah.
good story though.
yeah, I mean, it makes for a really good story.
But it's like sometimes I think it's hard to tell, right? Because it's so
Right.
easy to fake these kind of stories because what proof do we have, right?
Yeah. It's all
Because
subjective.
Yeah,
because
hearing
from
someone say like, "Oh, I've been
yeah,
out, like I was 80, I had an 80-year life and I came back." It's like, dude, if you had an 80-year life outside of your body, you'd be a completely changed person when you came
no,
back.
Hundred
You
yeah.
remember that
percent.
whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
because no, that is exactly the same story that I came across. But from what we do know is that before somebody dies, that there is an heightened there's heightened activity in the brain,
Hmm.
yeah.
and that's what could be related to the near-death experiences that we know. So there's some science behind it,
Yeah.
definitely.
And I like what you just mentioned there, Eric, how science does show there is activity in the brain right at the moment of death.
Yeah,
There's more studies coming out to show gamma brain waves. Real
right.
quick here, your audience might know brain waves here. You have beta, alpha, delta, theta, and it
Yeah,
goes in that hierarchy from super alert all the way down to delta where you're sleeping. Now there's this brainwave that's coming to light called gamma. And
yeah.
you actually have to pass through delta, which is super slow, 4 hertz, you're sleeping. When you go gamma, you're actually in a very heightened state of awareness.
Right.
And people report, in these studies that when you're out of body, you're in gamma. When
Hmm.
you're having a deep meditation, spiritual experience, you're in gamma. And right before the moment of death, you're in gamma. Dr. Joe Dispenza, if your audience wants to do some more research about
Yeah.
gamma brainwaves, he does a lot of research and he has pictures and science-backed studies to show gamma is a true concept. And when you're in gamma, you do have real life experiences where you see, hear, feel, and taste things just like in real life. And
Yeah.
time's just a physical concept that us
Yeah.
humans made.
Mm.
So what is time when you're in gamma? That's why Brett and I, we do know for a fact when you're out of body, it's dilated, which means time is longer when you're out of body compared to physical, where it'd be shorter. A 2-hour experience could be 5 minutes in the physical. We really don't know. More testing will need to be done, but we do know it is dilated.
When
Right.
it comes to time, the beings out there, they don't care. There's no concept of it out there. There's no clocks.
Yeah.
There's no regard for time. Time is not a problem, it's kind of freeing in that aspect.
Yeah. Amen to that.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, it all makes me really question like what is consciousness, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because uh you know, my grandfather died, and I attended his funeral. But, you look at a body, and he's not the first funeral that I've gone to because I've actually experienced this at a couple more, but I'm using his as an example. It was his funeral, and I could see his body, clearly. But the energy that there was no energy being emitted from his body,
Mm-hmm.
but there was energy that he was in the room and possibly standing next to his body. So it makes me wonder, like, what is consciousness, and how does all of this relate to each other?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good question.
Those are $1 million questions, right? And
Yeah.
that's where we're
Yeah.
trying to teach people to get out of body so we can try to investigate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, we could all be going out of body 24/7 and not see the same stuff twice.
Yeah.
It's like that massive. You're kind of
Right.
shotgunning yourself out in a random direction because we just don't know how it all works. We don't have access to that part, right?
Yeah.
If we came from there, let's just have that thought, you know, process. Like if everything was consciousness, right, including this physical reality, it's all began as
Yeah.
consciousness.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then we're here in a car made out of meat
Right.
in order to experience this place because it's partitioned it's a partitioned segment of consciousness that has its own rules, right? Like
Right.
you're here to be here, you need a body, you need to be inside of one. Outside of it, you don't need that. But
Yeah.
um, wow, I can't believe I derailed my own thought. Uh, what were we talking about again? I
Basically, that
had
your
you were talking
the
about your
body
grandfather,
is
right?
the
Consciousness. How does consciousness relate to it?
yeah,
Yeah.
that your body is selling your consciousness. I can't put, I sometimes I can't even put words to what I'm
Yeah.
thinking, but
Well, while Brett remembers his train of thought there,
yeah,
what we can say is that that's the essence of astral projecting.
right,
Because when you go out of body, like what's really happening here? Like my physical sleeping, but I can see things, I can hear things, I can taste things.
right,
Well, that vehicle, the new vehicle, is that astral body, the astral energy. Um, and that's how we explore out of body. So if that's true, if there's a new vehicle that we exit into, that vehicle is within us physically when we're awake.
right,
We do have this energy within us, whatever you verbiage people want to say, the soul, spiritual DNA,
yeah,
energetic self, the emotional self, the etheric self. There's something in us that goes beyond the physical, beyond the brain. And that's what we get to experience when we're out of body. Astral projecting will not make you enlightened, but it is a tool to become enlightened. It's a tool to use to have spiritual growth, personal growth, and make sense. What the heck is going on?
right, yeah,
Like it makes sense. It's easier to think about if you think that everything is consciousness. I think is what I was
hmm,
getting towards.
okay,
Like I remember my sister and my grandfather was sick in the hospital. He was dying from cancer, and my family was taking care of him. And my sister said on one day he just like he was raising his hands like he was looking at something that wasn't there, and his eyes were closed.
Yeah.
And so he's like reaching out for something that wasn't there. And then after that was done, he never moved again. Even though his body, his vehicle was still alive, he
yeah,
left. And I think that
Yeah.
happens for a lot of people. It's like when you're ready to go, you go. Your consciousness, which is what we were before, leaves, and you
yeah,
leave the empty car behind because you don't need it anymore, right? It's
Yeah.
failing you.
yeah,
And when we're here, we don't have access to everything we knew before because if we did, it would defeat the purpose of being here, whatever that is, right? Because we're kind of cheating, like teaching people how to go out of body, and it's kind of cheating, and it's funny because we can like this is all other topics we can get into, and how you really don't have full control when you're out of body. You can get denied information. You can be put back into your
Yeah.
body forcefully if you're trying to
yeah,
find out things that you're not supposed to. You will get someone coming along to tell you no. It's like we're
Yeah.
kids. We're going out of body. We're like, oh, I'm so excited. I want to do everything I want. And then there's, that's what they talk about guides, right? Like,
yeah,
because I'm pretty sure when we go out of body, we stick out like a sore thumb. We must
Oh
light up.
yeah. Yes.
Because I've been watched. I felt watched multiple times. And sometimes it's just like, you're not going to be able to do this. I'm sorry. It's like, or you hear a voice saying no. It's like, it's everyone thinks it's like lucid dreams where you can do whatever you want.
right.
It's not.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Nope.
it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I have another story to share actually. So, one of my early jobs that I had, I was working in this food processing plant. Uh, it was a fruit um, factory. So, one of the experiences that I actually had was this one day I hit my head on a conveyor belt, which completely knocked me out. And when I came to, I don't remember how long I was out for because in this area where I was, there was no one around,
Hmm.
and I just remember when I fell, I actually busted my lip, and I was just gonna go to the restroom to wash myself off, and that's when someone that was walking by kind of looked a little bit freaked out when she saw me, and it wasn't until I reached to wash my face, I looked in the mirror, and my lip was completely busted. But I was unaware of all of that. So my point being was, I don't remember anything from the moment that I hit my head because I don't remember hitting the floor or anything. I just remember one moment I felt my head getting bumped, and the next moment I was on the floor and I was completely gone. So that
Where
makes
were you
me
during that period? Is that what you're trying?
no,
wondering?
there was nothing. So,
Yeah.
some people may have some experiences with dreaming or like lucid dreaming. But in that moment, I don't, it goes back to at the moment of death, if this happens to everyone or some people just go out, if what someone dies from is head trauma, like would they
Oh,
experience this if they're if they experience brain trauma, would they experience something like this, or it's
Mm.
something that you get shot, you're bleeding to death, and you're still in a state of consciousness, but but if it may differ if from the trauma that you receive is bodily or if it's to the brain. And
no. Yeah. No,
yeah,
no.
I don't know if that makes any sense. Like,
I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Like, but that would only make sense if your body, your brain
yeah,
created the consciousness in the first place. And
right,
what we're
Exactly.
saying is that's not the case. Your
Exactly.
consciousness was first, and then your body came and
Yeah.
you attached to it.
No
So,
matter.
yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry, not to talk over you, Brad. No matter what you do to the physical body, your soul, that energetic body, will
yeah,
never be created nor destroyed. The
right,
essence of who you are continues to live on, regardless what happens to your brain, what happens to your heart, because it's not physical. It's all energy.
yeah.
N-
I mean, actually, to add to that point that I just made, so right now, looking back to that, I don't remember anything. But is it
Hmm.
possible that I did experience something that
Uh,
was detached from the consciousness that I'm experiencing right now?
I know what you're talking about because I've as a kid, I was sick and I was also very sensitive. I passed out a lot, especially when it
Yeah,
came to medical triggers like blood.
right.
I was a very squeamish kid. Every single one of those times, though, it was just dark. It was like um, I had no input from the body, but I was still attached to it, waiting.
Yeah,
And it's like I think that's more of a physical symptom,
right.
and because I've had the same kind of things, like under anesthesia, it's just black. Like I'm there, but I don't get to experience anything because my
Yeah,
physical car is like in idle or something. It's like I can't do anything. And I think that's the same thing when you pass out because every single time it's been like that for me. And if I was started dreaming or anything, I would definitely notice it.
Hmm.
right.
So I don't think my consciousness is anywhere else. It's still there. It's just waiting for the body to give input back to it.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's not like when you're asleep, or death, because death severs that connection completely. And that connection, there's a representation of that. If you go out of body, some people see it, some people don't. You don't have to. Have you ever heard of the silver cord?
I
Have you
haven't.
heard of that concept?
No.
So this has been around for a long, like hundreds of years.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
there's people uh like spiritualists, even back in the 1800s and everything, like they'll have out of body experience. They'll talk about your energetic form having this
hmm,
like cable coming out of it, and the cable leads to where your physical body would be in bed, right? Sometimes your physical body
yeah,
is there, maybe not, but it's like this, you're attached. It's like a
Mhm.
elastic cable, and and it's a representation of your connection to your physical body at this moment.
Hmm.
It can't be destroyed. It can't be cut. There's all these people that are like, oh, if the silver cord's cut, you're gonna die. No, it's not gonna happen. When you
Uh-huh.
eventually die in the physical, then that is cut, and then your tie to the physical is over. You can
Yep.
go. You don't have it anymore. Like your grandpa, when as soon as his body, he died, or he agreed to leave it
Right.
before physical death, that is like, okay, you're no longer bound, and
Yep.
you can go back. And it's like, what happens after that? I mean, there's a lot of conjecture and theories about it. There's other authors that have talked to their dead loved ones, their mothers, things like that.
Hmm.
In the old book from the 20s I'm reading, he's talking about like the different ways that someone could die and just not realize it. Like
Yeah.
if you're in a war, right, and you're running along, all of a sudden your body blows up, like a bomb goes off. You could have project right into the astral, like your soul is still running across the field,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't
Yep.
realize. You're like, wait a minute. Like it would take you a bit to realize that you actually died because it was so seamless and instant.
Yep.
There's a
Yeah.
bunch of people that write about that too. So there's a huge spectrum of experiences. It's like it's hard to nail down into exactly like what's going on at any given point, but at least when it comes to that, it seems like you're connected to your body. Right now you're
Yep.
alive, you're connected to it. When that's over, you're not bound to it anymore, and you can go do whatever. And I think at night when we sleep,
Yeah.
we're also, because this gets into a little bit more complicated theories, like your higher self, right? Like, have you ever had premonitions or intuitions or gut feelings, about future events, and those things happen, or to not go a certain direction and you listen to it? Like, have you ever had, I think everybody
No.
experiences that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that, at least I think, and I don't know if Kevin does too, but it's like messages coming from yourself, your higher self, the
Right.
greater consciousness of Erik
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
is that has its foot in the astral right now. You know, it's
Yep.
observing you. You're awake, but you're a partition of it. So our objective consciousness, you, Erik,
Yeah.
are not only Erik. Like, you're Erik this time,
Yep.
but when you die, you dissolve back into the greater Erik, like the greater essence of you
Yep.
that knows everything, that remembers everything before.
So
Yep.
is that related to reincarnation?
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know if there's any AP authors that don't
So
think
uh,
reincarnation is not a thing.
because I
Yeah.
mean, if that were the case, if I'm or if the energy that I have is bigger than my physical body,
Hmm.
then I guess it could play into reincarnation that
Yeah.
Yeah.
the consciousness or the conscious remembers, and that's why people are a certain way because of the prior lives that they
Yeah.
have
I think
lived.
that kind of does play into
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
There's I love what you're saying here, because there's a lot of there's a lot of talk out there that confirms what your suspicion here. You know, you got to remember to remember. I love hearing that. Remember to remember. What does that really mean? You have to remember that you are an energetic being having a human incarnation. All things that happen when we are born, not only do we get born naked, we actually have to pass through the veil. We hear this all the time in spirituality and even AP. You got to go beyond the veil. You got to pierce the veil. You got to look beyond the veil.
Mhm.
What is the veil? The veil is the ability to forget who you are. When we're born, when our spiritual DNA, that essence, that higher self that Brett mentioned, that never dies, and it was never born. It was always here. And when we are reincarnated, we go through the veil and forget who we are. We forget that we're energy. We forget there's energetic laws. We forget we have this ability to naturally astral project every night. We forget these things. And we have to
Mhm.
remember that we are energy. Everything's energy, and that's all there is to it. Albert Einstein said that, and he was a pretty smart man. So reincarnation, and we can talk more about karmic and lineage. And there are tools and techniques that we can do right now to pierce the veil and see our past lives. One common idea within astral projection is this thing called Akashic records that all things have been, is, and will be, is all recorded. And we can look in those records to see who we were in past lives. There's reasons why we like specific things and dislike specific things in this physical incarnation, because we were pre-exposed in our past lives. And besides Akashic records, there are other tools and techniques to look beyond the veil and see your past lives. There's a lot of knowledge out there to support these claims.
This is another thing to think about, like, what is the most efficient way to learn a language in the shortest amount of time? Usually that's by exposure, right? You go to an area where that's all they speak and you're forced to do it quickly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So us coming here, fish out of water, forced to be disconnected from everything, and we're learning, right? We're learning through experience every time we come here, right? And I think that's what the point of it is. And I think one of the bigger things we bring back is empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you had everything in life, if you were just happy all the time, you got everything handed to you, what are you learning? Squat. You're not really learning anything. It's like there's no obstacles to overcome. You never had any hardships that you had to deal with and learn from. And having these hardships, even though they may be negative and bad, you're bringing back the empathy for other people that have gone through the same things. And so I think when you come here over and over, you just slowly become more of a, like, just not just a better person, but you're like elevating your own energy, right? It's
Absolutely
more giving. You're just you understand at a soul level. You might not objectively think about it or know why, but you can have those feelings. Because, like, again, I said, like, outside of here, it's all thought, emotion, feeling. Like, that's all the energy makeup of consciousness.
Right. So, well, that's a great point to actually leave this ad. And, before you go, where can people actually learn more about what you're doing?
They can check us out at Astral Traveler Institute.com. You can sign up for the free course there. We have other resources. Stay in touch and contribute.
Yeah, we'd like it. We're trying to build a community. We have a Discord server, you can join straight from the site. Our flagship course is completely free, doesn't require any personal information, just an email, and you can get started.
Great. Well, I mean, this was a very interesting conversation.
Well, thanks for having us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. All right, well.
And we hope to see you on it.
Yeah, we'll see
you. Yeah, we got to get you on it and get out of body.
No, yeah.
We'll see you in the astral plane, Eric.
Yeah, we'll see you.
All right, well, I'll see you there.
All right, have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.